Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, and you are listening to episode number 621. Tonight I am flying solo in this intro. That's okay, because there's a lot we talk about in the intro itself, or in the show itself, I should say, so no worries there. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the recent passings of both Bob Barker, long-standing television game show host, Price is Right, if you don't know it. I don't know what to tell you. There's years and years of episodes and footage of Bob Barker online. If you're a fan of Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore, the fight on the golf course scene, and there was apparently another follow-up in a hospital scene where they got together and like kind of rekindled that little feud. We also talk about Arleen Sorkin, who, if you don't know at this point, it's been around all over the internet. She was the real-life inspiration for Harley Quinn for Batman the Animated Series. Season 1, Episode 8, Joker's Favor, was the debut of Harley Quinn on the show, and then from there she jumped from the animated series over to the comics, from the comics onto TV shows, onto the movies. And Harley Quinn's been one of the most popular characters in the DC universe. We talk about both individuals to quite some length, and we enjoy it. We have some fun, and then we talk about some more DC Comics movies and universe. So, hope you guys have fun with this one. It's a lot. So we are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can always find us under the podcast section. Make sure you check us out over at Rabblecast.libsyn.com. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rabblecast. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast. Check out the Rabblecast Facebook fan page and send us an email, rabblecast@gmail.com. Especially when we're talking about Arleen and Harley Quinn. I may have gotten a few things conflated here and there. Let's face it, there's a lot of useless information that's bouncing around my brain. It's very easy for me to get something crossed. So feel free to let me know if I missed something or if I screwed something up. I'm more than willing to take the criticism. Don't worry, I'm a big boy. I can take it. But with that said, there's a lot to get into, so enjoy the show.
The Rabblecast is back.
Yes, it is. How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
Oh no. Bit of a rough week.
It's been a very rough week. It's been a rough month. It's been a rough year. It's been a rough decade. I don't know. How are you, man?
Well, the good news is, if it's been a rough month, it's the last day of the month. So hopefully next week, tomorrow. You ever hear the old superstition? I remember back in high school in English class, if you wake up on the first of the month and if you utter the words rabbit, rabbit, if those are the first things that come out of your mouth when you wake up, apparently it's like a good luck superstition. I don't know.
I've never heard that in my life.
There's only one other person I've ever met, outside of my class. I don't know if anybody remembers that from when we used to go to school, but one of my friends growing up, when I met him, I spoke about it like offhandedly. He goes, "Yeah, I heard about that too." And like every every month he'll do it. Rabbit, rabbit. And I was like, I don't know what it means. I don't know like what the actual idea or history behind it. But every now and then when a new month rolls around, I'm like, oh, rabbit, rabbit. Here's to another one. Let's hope. I don't know.
Does it work?
I always forget about it. And by the time I get to the end of the month, I don't know if those were the actual words that I said first. I don't know. It's like anything, it's subjective. Take it as you will.
Okay. All right.
Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's just a suggestion. See what it'll hopefully.
If I was a gambling man, I'd put about a 10% chance on me remembering to do that tomorrow morning.
Fair enough. Like leave a Post-it note on like your on your bedstand, and just as soon as you roll over, you see your phone or your alarm clock, you just go, huh, rabbit, rabbit.
You have no idea how good, because of my how my brain operates, I'm very good at ignoring Post-its.
Okay. How did you learn this skill?
Because I use too many of them to put notes all over my workspace. So I'm constantly, like, I've got like a post it over here to remind me of this, a post over there to remind me of that. And after a while, I just look past them because they're just all over the place.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, I then begin to associate, a yellow square of paper, ignore it. And I kind of do that in the back of my head, so that screws everything up.
Gotcha. Okay. It's the same thing with me with my phone. You can set reminders for your phone for certain things. And 9 times out of 10, when it pops up on my phone, I just ignore it or swipe it off the screen. Like, I'll get to it later. Completely defeating the purpose of having a reminder. So
yeah, that blows that out of the water.
We'll see what happens. Oh man. Last week we were talking about the untimely passing of Bray Wyatt and the long spanning career and also passing of Terry Funk. And
yes.
In the idea of not trying to make it the death cast over and over and over again, unfortunately, we had another individual who passed recently in the geek and nerd scene or pop culture that I figured let's talk about her first, and it actually could lead to a bunch of different aspects later because she had a very big impact, in particular for the Batman universe. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Oh. You're going in the direction I wasn't expecting. Okay.
Where'd you think I was going to go first?
Bob Barker.
Okay. You know what? Let's go there first because his is a very storied past as well. In fact, what was the one thing that I saw? Bob Barker passed away at 99, just under $1, and he made it into the showcase. And I was like, oh shit! For anybody who watched Price is Right. When you had to spin the big wheel, you had to get as close to or under $1 to try to advance, or if it was for the big spin, for the big bonus, which was always exciting if you got it in. If you hit the dollar or you hit the bonus green spots, then everybody would jump up and down and go crazy. But yes, okay, let's talk about Bob Barker. I have no problem with that one.
It's quite all right. Yeah, let's go. All right.
Let me just pop that one up real quick. What are your early memories of Bob Barker?
My early memories of Bob Barker. Well, the big one was him still having brown hair.
Okay.
Because that was as I've heard a lot of people say over the last 6 days or so, or 5 days or whatever it's been, that he was, if you were homesick from school, that was the one thing that everybody did. Everyone's like, well, you watched Price is Right at 11 to 12. That's just how it was.
Yeah, it was when you were homesick, or if you had like an extended holiday from school, or let's face it, some people who just stayed home during the summertime. If you didn't have much going on, if you didn't have a vacation or something, or the early goings of the summer, you just wake up and Price is Right. It's always there. It's always fun. It's always exciting. I tried watching recently with Drew Carey, and
yeah.
I'm not as good at the game overall. Like the prices of things have gotten so far out of my realm of knowledge that I'm just like, I have no clue what anything costs nowadays. I used to be able to like get really close because I watched the show so often, so you had a good idea of what things would cost or things were valued at. But nowadays, like, fucking prices are all over the place. It's just almost impossible to play the game, but it's always fun. So and the idea, there was a documentary, what was it, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I believe it was on Netflix a few months back. How there was this guy who I guess knew how to play the game so well that it was almost like cheating, and he was like helping different people from the audience win big.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the damn documentary now. I remember watching it one night. It was just kind of silly because apparently it became like a thing where if you would go to the tapings and if you became like a semi-regular, you would see a certain group of people showing up over and over again. You know, not to be on the show, so to speak. I mean, yes, if you get up there, it's always fun. But it was more just to be in the crowd, be in attendance. It was just the energy. It was just the place to be at the time.
Okay.
I can't recall off the top of my head. But Bob Barker just had that presence, that the showmanship. He'd been doing the show for so darn long to begin with. I believe he did radio to start off in his early career. So he had the know-how as far as controlling the audience, directing the contestants and everything. And the show was very formulaic itself. So once you once you saw a few episodes, you pretty much knew the pattern that it was going to. It was just the contestants changed from week to week. The games were random, and then from there, just all the chaos and nonsense that was The Price is Right. So
Yeah.
uh,
It was that. It was pretty cool. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not going to lie on you. This one, when I saw him pop up that he'd passed away, I had to double check because I have a memory of him dying about 4 or 5 years ago.
you know what? I had the same thing, and I even read, I think it was on Twitter, a few people saying, "I was like, is this the Mandela effect going on again?" Because I could have sworn he had passed already, and I could have sworn that we talked about him passing at one point, actually.
Hmm.
But I couldn't find anything specific, and I found a few health scares here and there, but nothing that was definitive, unless we got caught in some kind of weird, like, Back to the Future skewing into a tangent of a timeline. I have no clue how to explain it, but yeah, apparently he was still around a little bit. Adam Sandler did the little comedy sketch with him when he was laying in bed at one point in the hospital, where it was like a continuation of what was the Happy Gilmore bit where they beat the crap out of each other in the golf course.
Oh yeah, the Pro-Am skit from that from that movie.
Yep. So they did it again in the hospital, and at one point, Bob Barker actually flatlines on the hospital bed after he gets punched, and Sandler grabs the defibrillator. He's like, "Oh no, Bobby, we're not done yet. I still gotta beat the shit out of you." And right before he's about to hit him with the defibrillator, Barker grabs him by the neck, beats the crap out of him further, and like empties the bedpan on his head. He's like, "Oh my god, how much asparagus did you eat?" So it was always a good time, and it's very interesting to see his long storied career, and just, what are the some of the things that we recognize with Bob Barker. Spay and neuter your pets was the big thing at
Yes.
the end of every show. He's a big proponent of animal control, which growing up I had
Help
no
con-
clue.
help control the pet population.
Yeah, I didn't realize what was going on, but it, like, you know what, it makes sense. Stray cats, stray dogs, and everything else. Cats especially. There's plenty out there. But
Hmm.
it was it was always good to watch Price is Right. Always fun. I always was interested when they really did the Atlantic City tours, because they do them like
Okay.
on a boat, or they sometimes do it at some of the casinos. I don't believe it was Bob Barker himself going out and do it. It was just pretty much like a version of the game that would travel, and people had a chance to participate if they couldn't make it out to California.
Wait a minute. I never knew they did that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh wow.
They
Huh.
chose, like, I guess, like a small handful of games that were easy to pull off in other areas, and they just did them that way. So
Hmm. No shit.
I keep, for anybody who hears this in the background, when you get an update in Windows, my laptop in the background and my wife's laptop are both muted, but for some reason there's another machine in the room and it keeps getting updates or notifications, and you'll hear it in the background. So I apologize for anybody who's going, "What the fuck's going on over there?" I don't know. I tried muting everything, or make sure everything was muted before I started, and I'm still hearing it occasionally. It's driving me nuts already. So we'll see how far I can get before I snap. Back to Bob Barker.
Yes, Bob Barker.
Let's see here. Robert William Barker, December 12th, 1923 to August 26th, 2023, was an American television game show host. He hosted CBS's The Price is Right, the longest running game show in North American television history, from 1972 to 2007. He also hosted Truth or Consequences from 1956 to 1975.
Dang.
I mean, to have that long of a run on a mainstay TV show, like, I don't know exactly what the taping schedule was for these shows. I'm sure they could knock out multiple episodes in a day, but to go out there, he had that little like pencil microphone with a little ball on top that he would always walk out with. The
That
nice,
was a very odd microphone. Yeah.
it was, I even questioned whether that was, like, in later years, if that was an actual microphone, if it was just a prop, because at one point they might have, like, hidden a lapel mic on him or something like that.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it was just for the aesthetics at one point or another. But for him to go out there, you had, what were they referred to as, Barker's Beauties, all the different girls who would go out there and model and pretty much just lay on top of the cars, or present the item like a can of beans or box of Band-Aids. It was just like, okay, let's get a pretty lady, hair and makeup, put her in a nice dress, and have her go out there and just stare at the camera and present things. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, that must have been a job in of itself, and a crazy one at that. But I don't know. Like the show had a certain appeal to it, and I really couldn't put my finger on it. Besides it being like a game show and the possibility of winning big, whatever the case is. But it was always fun whenever you heard the announcer go through like all the different, things that they could get. Like, oh, you can get a new grill or a new workout set, a new television, or a brand new car. He's like, holy shit. They play the music and everybody get excited. And all of a sudden, there's a new Ford Taurus, whatever, with I think the main vehicle that was available for that promotional period, whatever the case was. And I'm sure a lot of people just didn't take the vehicle itself. They probably just took the cash value because they didn't want to pay the taxes on it or whatever the case was. But
yes,
there was always like some weird back end where like, oh, you won $10,000. Most of that goes to Uncle Sam. Thanks for playing. That's just the government and the economy at work. But what were some of your favorite games off of Price is Right?
Oh, Plinko.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Plinko is freaking sweet. Yeah, hell yeah, man.
I've oftentimes wanted to build my own version of Plinko. In fact, when I was very young, we went back to Central America, and in October in our town, they have this festival that rolls through. And all it is, it's a lot of music, a lot of food, and a lot of games. And this one guy had this little wooden piece of craftsmanship, I guess is the best way you can put it. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't great. You'd see that it's, had seen better days, but it was this board with a bunch of nails on it, and you take a coin and you drop it from the top, and it would just bounce around. Depending on what slot it landed in, you either won your money back, you broke even, or you lost your money. And after a couple times, I'm like, hey, that's Plinko. What the fuck?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know the origins of the game itself, but I was fascinated to see that I had made it down to Central America. So I was just like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. I always liked Plinko was top of my list as well, but I don't remember the name of it, but it had the yodeler. So you had to guess the price range. And if you guessed on point, the yodeler would go up the mountain. But if you guessed too much, the yodeler would continue and fall off the cliff.
Oh, yeah, I remember that game. Yeah, the Mountaineer, I think it was called.
I think so. Yeah. That one was always, just because you'd hear yodel. It's just annoying.
Yeah, you get the
Yes, they would play it. Where's some of the other ones? I like the dice rolling game. That was like a version of craps, essentially. You would roll the dice and pick one of the two numbers that would be the price of the car or whatever prize it was, and it would show up high or low, whatever the case. And you have to try to get it as close as possible. Of course.
Oh, there was the putting game.
Oh, yes. I forgot about the putting game. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The other simple game they usually like start the show off with was I think it was just called high or low. They would show you the price and you just have to guess whether it's higher or lower, and then you just lock your guess in, and then you'd hear a buzz or a ding if you got it right or wrong.
Yes.
And then, of course, let's not forget the big wheel itself, where you had to spin and you would just hear it go doot, 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 doot. And sometimes you think somebody would spin it so hard it would just like fall off the rotator.
Well, the rule was it had to go around all the way once, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the trick with the entire thing. Otherwise, I think they made you spin again.
Yes, if it didn't rotate fully around, they gave you an additional spin just to make sure you got the full rotation. But if you didn't get it again after that, I think I've only seen one person fail doing that. I'm sure there's probably been more than one. But if you couldn't get the full spin, they were just like, thank you for playing and move along. But then, yes, you had to get close to $1 without going over, and then hope that your opponents didn't beat you or match you. And then, yes, because then if you got, so full rotation, and then you could land on the $1 or you could land on one of the green spaces and you get a bonus spin. You would go again, but then on the bonus spin, you would have to land again on the $1 or the green space, and then you would win like what, an additional $1,000 or $10,000, something like that.
It was something like that. I can't remember. I honestly don't remember. I have not watched. Good Lord, I have not watched Price is Right in probably 20 years.
I'm trying to think. I definitely watched, like I said, I watched one episode with Drew Carey just to see what it was like, and it just felt weird. I never got used to his hosting abilities, but that's nothing against Drew Carey. He's been doing it for quite some time now himself, so good for him. I think he's what, 15 years on the job?
Well, they said he was Bob Barker was done in 2007. So yeah, that would have been about 16 years ago that he wrapped it up. And I don't know if there was anybody else on the interim before Drew Carey took it over.
No,
I also have a hard time looking at Drew Carey now because I'm used to Drew Carey from the 90s and he looks like weird now.
we have the little soul patch and everything else.
Well, not like that, but I'm used to him being like a fat dude.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he was skinny, and I was like, and he got skinny and he got old, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm sorry.
I wonder if he's going to be able to match Bob Barker's run.
Yeah, well, who the hell knows? I don't know. Who would have thought Bob Barker would have made it? I think one of the reasons, going back, I think that I imagined in my head that Bob Barker had passed away is because he just went into retirement. He just didn't do anything, so he wasn't in the public eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for the digression there.
No, not at all. Because that always begs the question: like, if you do something for so long and then you decide, "Hey, I'm done doing this," because I know we talked about it with wrestling in particular. If you do something for quite so long, and that's your career, that's what you know, that's what you do day in and day out. What do you do when you retire? What do you do when you say, I've had enough? I mean, in the case of Bob Barker, who I'm sure had tons of money for being on TV for so long and endorsement deals and everything else. What do you do when you're rich? You've still got somewhat of your health, I would assume, because even though he was older, he wasn't sickly from what I knew until much, what was it, 07 to now 2023. So what did he do in that time span? Did he vacation? Did he go out to certain places? Did he just play golf? Or did he just keep going to animal control conventions and saying, spay and neuter, spay and neuter? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to find out. What do you do at that point? Because if you just sit around the house, let's face it, that's a quick way into a grave to begin with. If you just let your body just relax and your muscles fade away, you're just like, yeah, I'm done. I used to be on TV, wasn't like 50 years or whatever the case is, or broadcasting altogether, and just slowly dwindle. And who knows? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing they always said for a lot of people. Why did Joan Rivers live as long as she did? Why did Don Rickles live as long as they did? Because they just had more and more, or they always had something to do. They always had a project. Joan Rivers was like, oh, well, I'm doing a show here, and then after that, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to this other town. I've got an in-store signing, and I've got another show booked and all that, where a lot of entertainers, they never got off the road. They just went until their body was just, completely just crapping out on them. And they're like, well, I guess I have to stop now because I'm going to die.
I'm trying to think the other gentleman, another performer, Ed Asner. For the longest time, it was just, he had, live action, did a bunch of acting gigs, did a lot of voice acting. Most recently, I want to say his role on Cobra Kai as Johnny's father. But he was another guy. He was just always out there, always working, always doing something. And when he finally passed, you're like, holy shit, he's still around. And if you're familiar with his voice, familiar with his work, you've seen him quite a bit. And you see him, he's like, oh wow, he's still going. He's still at it. Yeah, if you've got the drive, if you have those projects, keep pushing and you keep showing up day in and day out. I guess you can keep the engine going. But for some people, I don't know. Other people just end up falling short, I guess, certain expectations, and they say, "Oh, gone too soon." Well, Bob Barker, how old was he again? He was 99.
I was going to say he was about 4 months shy of his 100th birthday. So there you go.
There you go. He goes on to the showcase. Motherfucker, under a buck, made it. God damn it, he lived the he lived the game.
I was going to say, living the gimmick, baby.
That. It's fucking great. Yeah, the picture of this show here on Wikipedia is a young Bob Barker from 1975. He's got that smile, the dark hair like you were talking about. Fucking crazy. Good
Wait
for
a minute,
him.
young. In 1975, he was what, like 52,
He
53?
looks relatively young from when I last saw him. Okay. He wasn't
Okay.
silver streaked and older at that point. He looked good for whatever he was at the time.
Everything's relative.
That's
Everything's
right.
relative.
He was halfway through his life. Leave me alone. We should all be so lucky.
I was going to say, it's like, oh, did you find a picture of him from like when he was 27 back in the 1950 whatever?
Do they have one from? Let's
Oh,
see.
sorry.
Bob Barker. Actually, they do have one. Barker hosting his debut on Truth or Consequence, 1956. Does not look like him, to be honest.
I was going to say he would have been in his early 30s if I'm doing the math correctly at that point.
Yeah,
So,
his face hadn't aged into the face that we knew at that point, because he had a very specific face after, especially being, I'm sure, out in Malibu and the tan and the dark skin. Different story. Also, I think I know he showed up on WWE a few times, but
I think you're right.
did they ever induct him into like the Hall of Fame and something silly like that in the celebrity wing?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Which means I'm willing to reckon that they probably offered and he probably said, no, thank you.
He probably asked, did you spay and neuter your pets? And like, well, a couple got loose. No thanks.
And no, who knows what his deal was. Maybe he was just like, no, I want nothing to do with this, or this is stupid. Who the hell knows? I don't know.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's another. Maybe he didn't want to be in the same Hall of Fame as, I don't know, Pete Rose, Kid Rock, and Donald Trump. I don't know.
You take a look at the class behind you, like, yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'll pass.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Awards. They actually have this listed for him. Daytime Emmy Awards, overall 19-time winner.
Damn.
In media, Bob Barker Studios, CBS Television City named in his honor. Time Magazine's greatest game show host of all time. Damn straight. GSN Lifetime Achievement Award. Okay. 2009 Slammy Award for the best guest host.
Oh, there you go.
Didn't he and Jericho have a little bit of a promo back and forth?
Oh, for the life of me, I cannot remember because that was so long ago.
Gonna have to look up some videos after the show, man. Let's see here. Halls of Fame. Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, of course. Television Hall of Fame, class of 2004. Okay. And the NAB Broadcasting Hall of Fame, class of 2008. Bob Barker's autobiography, Priceless Memories, written with former Los Angeles Times book review editor Digby Deal, was published on April 6, 2009. So there you go. And of course, they list animal rights advocates and everything else. So, bunch of information on Mr. Barker. You can go check it out. And of course, if you're a fan of older Price is Right shows, you can go check them out. I'm sure online. I'm sure there's a bunch of videos uploaded. Drew Carey continuing the tradition nowadays, which is always fun. I mean, nothing much has really changed. The Price is Right. You really can't do much to break the formula. You get your, was it like 4 or 5 contestants at the very beginning? They call the person's name down. The crowd starts going wild. People are jumping up and down. Come on down! And people run down to the little podiums, try to get their best guess for the prices. You couldn't go over. If you were closest, you would get the extra $100 or something like that. He would usually carry around in his pocket.
Yeah, you had to be within a certain dollar amount, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Closest to the actual
I'm trying to
value
remember how
without
much
going over. Something like that.
Well, yeah, that's how you won. But I think if you got within $10, or if you were exactly right, that's when you got the bonus. And yeah, actually, now that you mentioned it, it was kind of creepy that he was like, if a woman won, he'd be like, now reach into my pocket and pull out that $100 bill. It's like, what the fuck, you creep?
Yeah. He was a creeper, but he was on TV and you were winning money for him. So it was okay, I guess. I don't know. Weird.
Well, it was the 1980s. It was a different time. I don't know.
Okay, here we go. Here's the documentary I was talking about. The Perfect Bid, the contestant who knew too much.
Oh,
So if anybody wants to
okay.
check that out, a Price is Right superfan brings a bit of a scandal to the long-running show by figuring out the answers to the questions before they're asked. And yeah, that was part of it. I remember where the producers were like catching on when certain character was in the audience, like, I'll watch this guy because he's like giving information, or he would signal, when you were on stage and they would say, can you guess the price of the, box of mac and cheese? And they would look into the audience. You would think they were looking at their family or their friends from college, whatever. And they're like putting up 2 fingers, 4 fingers, or 5 fingers at the price. Sometimes those
Hmm.
people would be looking into the audience, looking for that individual who they might have met online before getting into the studio. And like, oh, they're going to be playing this game today. Because I don't know how the person found out. But apparently they got some information before the game actually took place. So they could relay the information to certain people. Because like, oh, we're going to help you win. And that became part of a thing. Like, oh, are these games rigged? Or is information being handed out ahead of time? If you watch this, again, Perfect Bid, the contestant who knew too much. It's
Okay.
interesting to see. It's like a behind the scenes and some of the craziness. But again, if you're a fan of Price is Right, it's always a good watch.
I'm kind of interested in that because I remember I never heard about that one, and that's making me think of some years ago when they put out the documentary about the guy who went on Press Your Luck after cracking the code from watching enough episodes of it.
I love it because this is like the third time I've had this conversation this year.
Really? Okay.
It was something Larson, the guy's name, who had a very, very weird story as far as getting onto Press Your Luck. Let's punch him up real quick. But yes, he apparently stayed home and watched multiple tapings and figured out the timing of the tiles as you would go through, and you would be like, no, no Emmy, no Emmy, stop, and he figured it out. So let's see here. Oh, Big Bucks, the Press Your Luck Scandal TV movie, 2003. Look at
Ah,
that.
there you go. Okay.
Who was the gentleman who was playing? James Larson, I believe it was. Was it? No.
Okay.
Hold on. I can find this out. Give me 1 second here. We'll cut this part out.
No, leave everything in. But no, it's while you're looking that up, I'll go a little bit of time. So no, it's interesting because if you're being able to tape it off television and just use your videotape to suss out the pattern, then yeah, whoever was programming that thing really didn't put in that complex of a pattern, I'm going to assume.
Yeah,
And
no,
if that's, go ahead.
yeah, there wasn't much to it, and you're correct. If record a few episodes, sit at home, and if you could just memorize them, there wasn't much to them. And let's face it, these TV shows, they only had X amount of money that they wanted to give out. So when somebody
Yep.
starts figuring out how to win the game, like, holy shit, what's going on here? We're going to be running out of
Yes,
money real
enough.
fast.
It's got to be like kind of like in Las Vegas, where if you start winning too much, all of a sudden, like yeah, the pit bosses and the eyes in the sky all of a sudden start looking at you very closely, trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yep. Let's see
Hmm.
here. Paul Michael Larson, or Michael Larson, was an American television game show contestant from Ohio who appeared on the CBS program Press Your Luck in 1984. Larson is notable for winning $110,237 in cash and prizes, at the time the largest one-day total ever won on a game show. He was able to win by memorizing the patterns used on the Press Your Luck game board. Larson used his cash winnings to pay taxes and invested most of the rest in bad real estate deals. As a result, he lost all his winnings within 2 years of the show's taping. He later fled to Ohio while under investigation for fraud. He was also found to be living in Florida when he died of throat cancer at the age of 49. Since his death in 1999, Larson's game has re-aired on television at various times and inspired 2 game show network documentaries: Big Buck, The Press Your Luck Scandal in 2003, and Cover Story, The Press Your Luck Scandal in 2018.
Hmm. It's fascinating. I didn't know there were 2 documentaries.
Yeah, there was another story about him later after he won Press Your Luck and got all that, and that became a whole thing, where there was a local radio show saying, do you have a $1 bill in your pocket? Good. Look at your $1 bill. We're going to read off a serial number, and if you have this serial number, you'll win $10,000 or something like that, some big amount for the time. And what Mr. Larson did is he went to the bank, since he had a bunch of money in the bank. He actually got like, I don't know, like $5,000 in singles and took them home. And he started writing out all the different serial numbers, hoping to win. I don't know if he actually won that radio prize, but he left for dinner or like a date with his wife or his girlfriend. And when he came back, somebody had broken into his home and stole the money that he had taken out of the bank.
Damn.
Let's see here before we move on. Larson used his VCR to record episodes of Press Your Luck shortly after its premiere in CBS in September of 1983. While watching, he noticed the randomizer that moved the light indicator around the 18-square big board had only 5 patterns. Larson began memorizing these patterns, increasingly confident he could predict when and where the randomizer would land. He began playing along with the big board rounds to test his hypothesis and pause his VCR tape at various intervals. Larson also discovered that the 4th and 8th squares from number one in the top left corner, then clockwise around the board, he always contained cash and never a whammy, a bandit-like cartoon character. When landed on, the result resulted in resetting the player's score to 0, accompanied by an on-screen animation that showed the whammy taking the player's earnings, with 4 of them eliminating a player from the game. Larson also learned the 4th square clockwise contained the top dollar value, and that in the second round, contestants were awarded an additional spin if they landed on those spots, 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 in a square 4, 500, 750, or 1,000 in the 8th square. This proved crucial to Larson's crucial to his theory, as he could retain control of the board in the second round indefinitely and kept following the patterns. So by the second round, knowing this, he kept banking that bonus spin and just kept going and going and going. And a couple times they'd ask him, like, do you want to stop here or do you want to keep pressing your luck? He goes, let's go again. So,
Smart man.
Hey, I mean, if you could do it, there's been a lot of different things where in the history of game shows, they ask, is it rigged? Are certain contestants picked because of their personality or their looks, whatever the case is? There was an old game show where they said that, the attractive people were given the chance to win because they would look good for the camera, whereas somebody who might have been a little, I guess, ugly, or not as attractive to the camera, they just passed them on, like, oh, they're just a moron, just keep moving, whatever the case is. But yeah, there was different things where, is it rigged? Is the information giving out ahead of time? Are they giving guesses? Another famous one was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You ever watch that show?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Oh, is that the one with Regis Philbin?
Yes, the version we had here, and I think there were different versions overseas. But
yeah. Okay, I remember that. Yeah, when that was like very popular back in the early 2000s.
Yep, I believe it was overseas in that version where same thing. You would get they'd ask you a question, you have 4 answers, and you can do like a 50-50. You can do the phone a friend, or reach out to the audience and poll the audience and see what they'll say. Audience will lock in their votes, and you either trust the audience or just pick one yourself. Well, the one contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire had somebody in the audience, and they would actually, when the question was asked, the person would then start to read the answers slowly in the allotted time. And when he was on the right answer, you would hear a from the audience. They didn't realize it until they went back to review the tape, because the guy went on to win the jackpot.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't realize what was going on, but upon reviewing it, they realized that upon every time he read the correct answer, you heard a cough from the audience. Then they put 2 and 2 together, realized that he had somebody helping him the entire time. Now, whether that's cheating or not, you're allowed to call a friend, you're allowed to do the 50-50, you're allowed to do the polling of the audience. You've got the audience there, that's part of the gimmick. But they didn't take too kindly to that person going for it. They got sued for cheating. I believe they lost the suit, but they made a book off of the whole scandal, which got them more money than they would have won off of the show itself, and it just went on from there. It was like a weird, I don't know if it was a duo or a trio, but it was another big story in game show. Like, anytime you have any kind of system, especially involving money, somebody's going to realize that there's certain loopholes, certain ways to game the system, and they're going to just want to win and win big. That's what it is.
Yep.
So there you go. That's another one if you want to check out, in the Press Your Luck scandal with Michael Larson. I always remember the Larson part. It always sticks in my head, but
Right on.
always fun. Okay, so from there, since we were talking about people who passed away once again, I mentioned Batman earlier. So for anybody who's watched Batman the Animated Series, I just watched it earlier today just to refresh myself. Episode 8, Season 1, Joker's Favor. It's an early showing of Mark Hamill's Joker in the animated series. And funny enough, Batman's only in that episode for a very little bit. You would think he would be more prominent, being that it's, his animated series. But it's the first time we get to see Harley Quinn, the Joker's sidekick, or the Joker's love interest, however you want to call it, back in the 1966 Adam West days for Batman live action. You would always have the villains show up on screen, and they would always have a female counterpart. So whether it was like a girl led astray or love interest, whatever the case was, or just something for, to Batman to save while he's doing all the fights besides Robin. It was along those lines, I guess, Harley Quinn was first presented in a way. But Paul Dini, one of the creators for the animated series, has said for quite some time, and it's funny because now after the passing of Arleen Sorkin, the individual that we're talking about, she was on, what was it, Days of Our Lives? I believe it was a soap opera.
Know.
Let's look it up real quick.
I don't know.
I have it right in front of me. Yes, Days of Our Lives, playing the character of Calliope Jones. On Days of Our Lives, they were doing a fantasy episode where they were playing characters from nursery rhymes. And Calliope Jones comes out on roller skates, dressed up in this clown makeup and this suit. They roll her out, and she does a bunch of little bad jokes and silly things here and there, and nobody really thought anything of it. Well, Paul Dini at the time was creating characters for the animated series and decided, hey, let's give Joker a female counterpart. And seeing Calliope Jones, played by Arleen Sorkin, from there was like, oh, that's great. Let's do that. So created the motif for the Harley Quinn, and her voice, having that Boston accent, included a little bit of a Yiddish twinge to it, because Arleen herself was Jewish, and voila. If you listen to Arleen Sorkin's take on Harley Quinn early on, she has a slower delivery. Later on, when other voice actors took over Harley Quinn, more particularly Tara Strong became very famous for Harley Quinn after Arleen had retired. Her Harley Quinn had a higher pitched and more fast paced and energetic feel to it. Arleen's was very slow, very deliberate, and very fun, but you don't notice the difference unless you go back and listen to them. But the character was there. If it wasn't for her, Paul Dini probably would have had a different take on Harley Quinn altogether. But she very much inspired the animated version of it, and was a hit from that episode. And they kept including her in very different episodes later down the line. Eventually, Tara Strong took over. Tara Strong was doing Batgirl. I think one other character, I can't remember off the top of my head. But she took over the role subsequently after that, and she's made a good career off of that voice and many others in her voice acting career, that Harley Quinn has become such a strong character. So you have Arleen, you've got Tara Strong, and Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory now does the Harley Quinn animated that's on HBO. That's like an R-rated version of the Batman universe. They say shit and fuck and everything else, and it's always fun.
And also in that one, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are fucking.
Yes. They have the love interest going on there. Yes, very much so. There was, I'm trying to remember something else. All right, so Joker's Favor was her debut in the cartoon. Mad Love was adapted from a comic book, I want to say, if I remember this correctly. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in emails. And then later on, if you want to get some more, I think it was still Arleen who did the voice for, oh gosh. And I think it was in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. You see you see a younger Harley Quinn from when when they kidnap Robin and they do like a bunch of like weird shit and brainwash him. Then later on, at the end of the film, spoilers, you see an older version of Harley Quinn as she's taking her I think it's her nieces or granddaughters when she's taking them out of jail, and they're the twins Didi, who are part of the Joker gang in the future version of Gotham. I think. Sorry, I'm taxing my brain here trying to remember all the different things. Her last project.
It's okay. You will remember way more than I do about this.
I have useless information coming up my ears. Her last project, I want to say, was the DC Universe Online video game, where she recorded a bunch of lines. I don't know if they re-recorded her lines later on with Tara, but that was like the last thing that she ended up retiring from the voice acting world. But let me just read some of her stuff real quick. So Arleen Sorkin was an American actress, screenwriter, television presenter, and comedian. Sorkin is known for portraying Calliope Jones on NBC daytime serial Days of Our Lives, and for serving as the real-life inspiration voice for DC Comics villain Harley Quinn, co-created by her friend Paul Dini on Batman the Animated Series. There you go. It was one of those cool things where it's one thing to have the Batman legend and lore, and whenever you recreate the stories, like how many times have we seen the Wayne family die on screen?
About 9,000 now.
Yeah, you see them going down an alleyway, somebody pulls a gun on them, the perils fall, there's little Bruce Wayne crying, becomes an orphan, blah, 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 blah. I say that just because it's been done so many times that it's ad nauseum at this point. You don't need to tell Batman's origin story. We get it. But when you're dealing with any kind of legend or lore, especially of this scope, it's always fun when you can add another spoke to the wheel. So you add an extra detail to the legend, to the history. And that's what Paul Dini and company did with the Batman animated series. Adding Harley Quinn in for the Joker was such a great addition that it fell right into place. It felt perfectly natural. Like I said, it felt like a callback to the old Adam West Batman with those female performers that were always with the villains then. And then just to have it go and go and go. And now the character has evolved so much that they've developed and they covered the toxic relationship between her and the Joker. Like at one point, she ends up catching Batman using one of the Joker's plans, but the Joker gets so upset, like, no, it's me, not you. It's my joke, my plan, I'm the one who takes the Batman out, not you. And when it got to that certain point, even in the comics, they developed like, all right, let's break Harley away from the Joker. Like, she's a female. She understands that what she's gotten into is wrong and crazy. And yes, she's still a bad girl, but let's get her away from that toxic relationship of being the Joker's punching bag, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
If you play like the Injustice video games and other games throughout the gaming world, like Harley's been developed to be a standalone character. She doesn't need the Joker. She teams up with Batman on occasion, but at the same time, she doesn't need the Batman. So it's nice that they've made her such a strong character. She came to most prominence with Suicide Squad once Margot Robbie took over the live action role, and everybody's like, "Holy shit! Like she looks perfect as Harley Quinn." Like, yeah, let's do it. What we can. I mean, you've got a beautiful actress, most recently in Barbie, but when she took over that role, she made it hers. She did that one. She did the James Gunn Suicide Squad. How many other times did she show up as Harley? Was that it so far?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, I want to say there was at least one other, like a cameo appearance or something like that. But I mean, she's made it hers for a while. Like, she was live action Barbie, and we were talking last week. The one wrestler who was involved with Bray Wyatt when they were doing the Sister Abigail story, Alexa Bliss.
Yes.
She used that Harley Quinn gimmick for a while, and it worked for her. It did really well because a lot of people were familiar with the character. How many times do you go to a comic book convention and you see people dressed up as Harley Quinn, either the classic Harley Quinn in the red and black outfit, or Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad, or just different versions of it that have been brought to fruition here and there. There's another one that's really popular where she's dressed up like she's from a roller derby. You see that one quite often, but always with a mallet, always with a bat. So always always ready to take on anybody who comes after her. So,
or the corseted version from the Batman Arkham video games as well.
Oh yes, the nurse's outfit dress.
Yeah, or there's one version from the games too where she's wearing a corset, I believe.
Yes. Was that the DLC?
Sure. I haven't played those games in a couple of years now, so
Fair enough. They're fun. I went back to play them myself, and I didn't get to the third one to play through again, but the first two I played again, and they hold up.
no, and they I mean, God, if you go back and look at those, I mean, God, what amazing those games got so much replayability because they're so much fun because it took them forever before they finally nailed Batman between, the stealth missions where it's like you're creeping around taking people out one by one, or the ones where it's like, okay, when you really figure out the combat mechanics, you can just beat everyone's ass. It's fun stuff. So, but yeah, I haven't had a chance to play those in probably, good God, I think I finished Arkham Knight and that was already like seven. That came out in 2015, so that's already 8 years old.
Wow, time goes, man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always
ain't
fun,
telling me.
especially when you get the different upgrades for your fighting abilities, and then you just chain those combos over and over and over again. You include your weapons and that satisfying slow motion punch or kick,
Hmm.
and just hear that bashing sound as it goes through your enemy's head or body, and like, oh, that was fun. Let's do that again. I'm trying to remember something else. So you got Batman Beyond, The Return of the Joker, which is a fun one because not only do you have, a future version of the Joker, but you also have the little backstory where they do the whole thing with Robin. Let's face it, Mark Hamill as the Joker has always been fantastic.
Hmm.
Where did she? Oh, she show up in. There was something else I can't remember off the top of my head now. Damn it. All right, moving along. But yeah, no, it's always fun to see where that character started because I remember working at a comic book shop when the animated series was on TV, and everybody going crazy over her because like, oh, what was the first appearance of Harley? Like, there hasn't been one yet, because when she was on the TV show, like everybody fell in love with her. And I remember, seeing the action figure that came out early on, and everything else. Everybody was going crazy for it. But then finally, when she transitioned over to the comics, which was not something that normally happened, if a character was made, it was usually made in the comics, then carried over to the animated series. Not so in this case, and a lot of people just fell in love with that version of it. In the more recent storylines in the comic books, they even went as so far as to say, okay, since we've already broken Harley away from the Joker, we had to give him another character to have as a female counterpart, and they came up with the character of Punchline, who's like some like crazy Joker fan turned assassin. And at one point, Harley and Punchline go at it in the comic books during the Joker War.
Joker War. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that one was a fun one if you get a chance because not only does Joker wage crazy war on the city, he essentially tanks Bruce Wayne's fortune. So Batman gets cut off from his money. All the different gangs start going crazy in the city. There's another character that pops up called the Clown Killer, some kid who dressed up with like a helmet and a bat and just starts killing Joker followers. But near the end of the storyline, I haven't read the whole storyline myself, so spoilers for anybody who hasn't either. Alfred dies in this storyline, I believe, or at least following up to it, and Joker gets his hands on one of the bat suits and Jokerizes the bat suit and then fights Batman in it.
Hmm.
So like at that point he has like all his tech and toys, and Batman just has to try to pull out the stops. Again, trying not to kill him, but realizing that he has to do something or this will never end. And this is like Joker's end game, essentially going for it and just saying like, that's it. I'm gonna break the bat. I'm gonna finally do what I've been trying to do all this time. It was a big event. Like I want to say like 2 years ago.
Okay.
During the pandemic, with the different distribution of books being disrupted because of Diamond Publishing and UPS and everything like that, I don't think it got as much sales. It suffered quite a bit in that respect, but I mean, it was still out there. You can still find the issues, and that was around the time when they were debuting Punchline, and everybody's like, "Oh, who's this going to be?" And everybody was going crazy because, of course, all the comic book collectors, as soon as they found out through previews, like, "Oh, Punchline debuts in this issue, everybody go buy it," and people were just picking them up left and right.
Hmm. All right.
So, I'm trying to remember what else. There's some other stuff going on here. Oh yeah. So if we go back again to Arleen Sorkin, famous on Days of Our Lives, friends with Paul Dini, and at the time, like they were just coming up with a voice for it, and they just said, like, just have fun with it. When they were trying to figure out what they wanted, Paul Dini, after hearing her on Days of Our Lives, said, like, we're not looking for anything different from your normal speaking voice. Again, just add a little bit of Yiddish or twinge to it, and go from there. And it's got to be fun when you're picked for a voice acting role, and they just said, we just want you to be you. Have fun.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, that's kind of what when you put your own voice into it, that's when you really get into it, right?
Yeah. It's difficult because I've heard a lot of different stories from famous voice actors where they say, when you're going to do a role, try to do a voice that you can do repeatably. Because if you're going to try to do a voice that's way out of your range or very low and very gravelly, and it's going to like screw up your vocal cords, after like an hour or two of recording, however long those sessions are, your voice is going to be destroyed, and you're probably not going to be able to do that again. I recall Mark Hamill in particular, when he was trying out for the animated series, he did another character in a Mr. Freeze episode. It was the bad executive, and he did the voice, no problem, did the job. And then they asked him to come back and audition for the Joker. And he went in there and he just let it loose. He had fun, did whatever. And by the end of everything, he was like, that's it. Try to top that. And he just walked away because he was very confident. He just had fun with it. He goes home. His agent calls him up. He goes, they want you to come back. He goes, no. I don't know what I did. Like, what the fuck? He wasn't prepared to come back for it because, little known fact, before Mark Hamill was cast, Tim Curry was going to be the voice of the Joker.
Really? Get out of here.
And they actually you can hear audio recorded you can probably find it on YouTube, and it was a very different type of Joker.
I'm intrigued.
But they brought back Mark, and they had him do the voice, and once he did that evil cackle, those little laughs and everything else, they said, all right, let's do that. And then they re-recorded the lines that Tim Curry had done. And there you had the Joker for Mark Hamill. But he found something he could do. He found something that was repeatable, and he became iconic as that voice. And then I can't remember the gentleman who did Mr. Freeze, but apparently it was like a very monotone, very steady voice. And then at that point, people like who's going to be able to do this again? Like, we have to have over and over again. I believe the gentleman has passed away long since. But I
thought for the voice for Mr. Freeze, it sounded to me like it was fed through some type of a processor because it had like an electronic quality to it.
Yes, they do effects on the voice itself, but that's just to give it that effect of it coming through like a speaker because of him wearing the suit.
Okay.
When he's out of the suit, there's no digital effect to it. But the actor who did it, just if you go back and listen to it, it's very, very awesome because his voice sounds frozen. It sounds cold. There's no highs, there's no lows. He just delivers the line very monotone in a very deliberate pace. And he's Mr. Freeze, so like even his speech pattern has grown cold. And it just, played into the character more and more. But people said, like, whenever you do that voice, how do you do a Mr. Freeze? Because it's hard not to put some inflections in it or have some fun with it. But like, no, we're almost looking for like a robotic voice. Just deliver it and just go for it. And the early episodes for Mr. Freeze did just that, and it was just fantastic. So it's little things like that add flavor when it comes to voice acting. And again, I've been doing a lot of research on it, so it's always the little things that I pick up on, and I learn from a lot of different voice actors when they give tips and tricks and everything like that. I believe it was D. Bradley Baker, very famous for doing a lot of the Star Wars characters, in particular the Clone Wars. If you ever watch when they do the different versions of the Clone Troopers, all of them are D. Bradley Baker, and he just adds like a little bit of personality to each character. But all the Clone Troopers are his voice, and he just has fun with them. How he
Oh,
keeps them separate as far as distinctions, I'm sure there's a lot of pencil and highlighters on his script to keep everything straight, but he does it, and I'm like, motherfucker, like, how does one person do like 4 or 5 different characters, same voice, just with a slight, change up to the voice, and you could hear them. They're distinct. So even if you close your eyes, you're like, oh yeah, that's Rex, or that's this character, or that's whatever. It's fucking mind blowing.
impressive.
Yeah. So, but rest in peace to both Arleen Sorkin, who again, live action or the live inspiration for Harley Quinn, for the animated series. It would have been nice if she would actually had a chance to play Harley Quinn in a live action, like TV, maybe even movie, but unfortunately we'll never get to see that. And of course to Mr. Bob Barker, who, again, long career in broadcasting and just had a fun time doing game shows. But good stuff, man. I mean, unfortunate for the passing. Again, Arlene was 67, had
Yeah.
quite a bit of a life. I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, she died too young. I mean, if you compare it to Mr. Barker, living almost a century, looked young at 52. Don't judge me. Uh, but just to see like different things that you can do in the world of entertainment, and they both entertained quite a bit. So it's crazy. And again, we're getting to the point where a lot of these people that we grew up watching on TV are just starting to pass away. I don't think I think I mentioned it to you, whether it was on microphone or or in our regular conversations. But the gentleman who played the Riddler on Batman 66, Frank Gorshin.
Yeah. What about
I remember, I believe, I want to say it was like in the 90s when he passed away. That realization of, oh shit, man, like the people that I watch on TV, like they're getting old, and they're going to start passing away slowly but surely. And then like with a bunch of other actors or performers, you hear them pass. You're like, man, that fucking sucks. I think I sent you an Instagram post where somebody had posted all the different wrestlers who'd passed away so far this year. It's like 6 or 8 people so far that were like prominent names. And I was like, fuck, man, really? Like it comes real fast. And before you know it, you'll get that notification, and you're like, wow, okay. Wasn't expecting that one, but then you look at their career, look at what they've done, even if it's a short career, the impact that they can make sometimes. She's like, wow, okay, that person had quite a bit. Wish that they could go on to do more, but whatever the case is.
Well, no, and that's unfortunately the nature of the beast. I mean, we weren't recording last, I think it was last fall sometime when Kevin Conroy, who was the voice of Batman and Bruce Wayne
Yeah.
on the animated series, when he passed away from cancer. And I mean, he was, as far as I'm concerned, as much as I've enjoyed some of the live action iterations of Batman, he is the voice of Batman to me. Just because, much like you growing up on Batman the Animated Series, to the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, to the Batman Superman show, to Justice League Unlimited, and then all the movies and games on top of that. So he was the guy for that.
There's the story. I know you've mentioned it in the past, where after 9/11, Conroy went down to go help out in some of the soup kitchens or places helping first responders, and he's in the back, serving food or cooking food or whatever the case is. And when they find out who he is and what he does, they're like, go ahead, tell them who you are. And he's like, I don't want to do it. And then finally he gets on the PA, and he does the line, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. And the people are like, holy shit, Batman's back there.
Yep.
It's fucking awesome. It goes to show you just how simple something like that can really stick into somebody's head, or especially when they're growing up, or there's a period in their lives. Jen and I were talking earlier today. The Flash just debuted over the weekend on HBO's Max application, and a lot of people are talking about, whatever the legal issues that Ezra Miller had, whatever the case is, or the movie itself, like it's hit or miss depending. There's a lot of fans right now that are reviving the argument, saying that if they do a sequel to the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, that they want Grant Gustin, who played the Flash on TV, they want his portrayal of the Flash in the next Batman movie. There's a petition going around. There's a lot of people that's saying that the CW live action actors should have been considered for the movies for Warner Brothers, but something in the producers' minds say, "Oh no, we can't use. You're on TV. We can't use you in the movies."
Yeah, I know, sense. Which is unfortunate.
Well, yeah, because by the time The Flash came out this year, Grant Gustin has done, 8, 9 seasons of The Flash. So countless episodes as The Flash. A lot of people know him as, this generation's Flash, whereas Ezra Miller's done 2, 3 movies?
Less than that, I think.
So it doesn't help out. Well, I'm counting the remake of the Justice League, the Snyder Cut. Doesn't count. You get one version.
It's the same movie, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's the same thing where you have so many people watching the TV show, and the Flash on CW. I mean, let's face it, Arrow kicked off the CW hero era for television. So you had Arrow, then you had the Flash that spun out of that, and then from there you had Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Batwoman. There's a new Superman and Lois TV show. Stargirl was another one that was brought to TV, and all these, they had little crossovers here and there, and you saw all the characters come to play, and all the villains were being put on TV. In fact, because of they used King Shark on the Flash for television, and they did nice CG effects for what they can do on television at the time, but because of that, they couldn't use King Shark for the first Suicide Squad movie. Because they thought, we don't want to reuse the character. Let's use Killer Croc instead. Not bad. The Killer Croc and Suicide Squad was fun. But then, when you went over to James Gunn's Suicide Squad, they're like, no, screw that. We're going to use King Shark. And they did a big CGI bipedal talking shark with Sylvester Stallone's voice. Anybody remember the quote? Hand. Silly stuff. It fit for what it was. But for whatever reason, producers and people in the front office say, "Oh, if you're on television, you can't be in the movies, or we can't make that leap. We'll confuse people." That's part of the reason why they haven't allowed a live action Batman show to happen recently, because they don't want to confuse audiences with having multiple Batman out there. It's like, motherfucker, you're doing that right now. You've had Ben Affleck be Batman for a few movies. Then you bring back Michael Keaton's Batman for a little bit. They were going to have another cameo in the shelved Batgirl movie. Michael Keaton was going to be in that. And then there was another iteration, I think in Aquaman. They had to do reshoots because they originally had Michael Keaton's Batman in Aquaman 2. And then because of all the craziness that's been going on at Warner Brothers, they said, well, we can't have that because Ben Affleck is this generation's Batman, so let's bring back Ben Affleck. They did reshoots with Ben Affleck. And then after everything that happened with the Flash movie, like, you know what? Let's just cut the Batman cameo altogether. It's like, Stop fucking wasting money. Like, I'm sure this is all write-offs for you people, but still, at the same time, give us Batman. Give us 2 Batman. In fact, give us Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton as old crotchety Batman, and then give us Terry McGinnis. People have been dying to see that version live action.
Well, this is going back to that classic problem that we've had with this for years is, at a certain point, the MCU, Kevin Feige was the guy who called the shots. I'm sure there were some other people advising him along the way, but at the end of the day, a lot of it was his vision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and over at Warner Brothers, what happens? It's the revolving cast of executives who are just like, well, no, we like this better. And, too many cooks, and also it's... fucking weirdos. So who the hell knows? I don't know. The same reason why that they never seem to be able to get them. They've never been able to get out of their own way. I mean, if the story is true of that they're bringing in, what's his nuts, James Gunn to kind of be the Kevin Feige of DC, we'll see where they are in about 5 years. This might be the thing that actually brings them to the forefront. But we'll see if the guy can handle the whole franchise himself.
Well, right now, he's been battling social media quite a bit, because anytime somebody puts out a new, rumor is James Gunn's doing this. And for a while, James Gunn was actually responding, trying to be very transparent and saying, no, that's not happening. Actually, this didn't even get to this phase yet. And they were just kind of like baiting him to get more information. So it got to a point where he was saying, all right, look, I know what you guys are doing, and I'm just going to stop responding. Like, I'm trying to be as open as I can, but you guys are just trying to, like, suck information out, and we're just not at that point yet where we're comfortable telling you more than what's happening. Because there was rumors circling about Superman, what was going on as far as casting and everything else, and then he finally admitted, like, we haven't even written the script yet. Like, stop with the fucking rumors. But then the casting rumor was announced, or I should say, casting announcement was made as far as the two people who were cast as both Superman and Lois, and then additional information got out that there's going to be a plethora of characters in Superman Legacy when that comes out. It's essentially going to be like the framing for the new DC universe, because they're going to be introducing not just the new Superman and Lois, but all these other characters that are already going to exist in this world as well. What was the other one? They said... Okay, so Blue Beetle is the official kickoff of the new DCU, apparently. Unfortunately, that movie doesn't seem to be doing so well.
Really?
Box
I thought
office.
it was doing half decently.
The initial box office, again, we're going with numbers that are reduced because of the way the theaters are currently going. They expected it to do a lot higher initially, but they reduced the numbers, and they're like, okay, it's doing all right for what it is right now. It did break... what movie was it that's killing at the box office right now? Barbie. Barbie, like its fourth week, finally was dethroned and didn't hit the number one spot. Again, after the fourth week, you expect something like that to happen. But a lot of fans are kind of writing it off because, like, oh, it's the old DCU stuff. Like, no, this is going to be part of the new DCU. In fact, the Flash, it was just recently revealed that there was a separate ending for the Flash that set up the new DCU, being that there's gimmicks or shenanigans with timeline and different parallel worlds. That was changed up because they figured, okay, this is the old DCU, let's close out this chapter and we'll try to launch something new. There was something that was found like 11 years back. Again, somebody found on Twitter or on social media some comments where James Gunn said about Batman, kind of pretty much deriding the character. And now there's a contingent of fandom that's like, oh, we're demanding his resignation. We demand Warner Bros. To fire him because he's not a Batman fan, and yet he's now in charge of the DCU. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, let it go. It's
there was an article that was posted. I can't remember the site, but they actually said, should James Gunn respond to these accusations or these comments that he made 11 years ago? No. I'll give you the simple answer. No.
In a word, no.
11 years ago, did he think he was going to be in charge of the DCU? No. I mean, at the time, he didn't even have a Marvel movie.
And also, how novel. But yeah, people's opinions can change quite a bit in 11 years. It's 11 freaking years.
Yeah. And at this point, he's in charge of this overall universe, live action. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to find a way to work it through and consult with different people and find people who, if he doesn't like the character, at the very least, he'll find the right people to help him fit it into his new version or his new, universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll work out. Don't get me wrong, but people love to get upset online. So everything, if you have a digital trace or footprint, they'll find like, oh, you said this. Like, okay, that was then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get over it. So, like, I don't know. But it should be very interesting to see what will happen going forward. I'm interested to see what will come of it. There's Booster Gold that was talked about, might be made into live action. Some of the other ideas, I want to see more of the whole idea of gods and monsters, his first phase that he's referring to. I just want to see more fun DC stuff. I hope he can rein in his James Gunn isms, I guess you can say. Because Suicide Squad, his version of it, was fun, but there are certain things that I guess, he was let off the leash to do whatever he wanted to. And you can tell by watching the difference between his version of Suicide Squad and the Guardians movies.
Oh, yeah.
The filter that he had between the two was very prominent. So I think he needs, in certain situations, not all, don't get me wrong, I enjoy his work. But in certain situations, I do believe he needs to be, rein it in just a little bit. but that's just
No,
my
I
personal.
agree. It was, and you are right. The 2021 Suicide Squad is the James Gunniest film I think that James Gunn has ever made. But it was, you could tell it's like this is a guy who cut his teeth working at Trauma.
Oh yeah,
You can, yeah, it definitely felt like that. And honestly, at a certain point, it just got, God, I think it took me three attempts to sit through that movie. I just, I just didn't care at a certain point with that one. It got to the point where it was like everything just felt excessive.
yeah. There's
Yeah, not a fan.
over the top, and then there's just flat out over the top.
And it's just like, yeah, it's like, dude, yeah, like you're at 11. We need you to turn it down to about a 6.
I appreciate the big kaiju at the very end with Starro. I mean, that was fun. Some crazy shit, but not what I was expecting. And you know, I don't know. There's so many different characters, especially at the very beginning of the film, where they have so many characters on the beach. And a lot of them get taken out, and then the small contingent that survives goes onto the island. It progresses the storyline. It's just like, what the fuck is going on? For anybody who hasn't watched any kind of superhero movie, it's very easy to get lost in that one.
Oh yeah,
So, but we'll see.
and it was also his tendency. It's like, yes, I know you know a lot of really fun songs, but take it easy. Not every song, or not every movie needs 73 fucking songs in it.
Well, that's also another thing he's been flagged for now because he does everything with music cues, and especially when you're working for Warner Brothers, you have pretty much all the music, so you can do whatever you want. So if
Yeah,
anything, you can write it into the script and you can have fun with it. But yeah, there's certain points where just like you don't. It doesn't. Not everything has to be a soundtrack to be sold.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But I think that's about it, sir. I think we've hit our mark for tonight. How about you? How do you feel?
I think we've done our. I think we've put our work in for the evening.
Sounds good. Once again, rest in peace to Bob Barker and Arleen Sorkin, two individuals who definitely entertained us throughout their careers. Sad to see them go, but we have, once again, their body of work speaks for itself, and a lot of cool stuff they left behind for us, and will continue to entertain many, many people to come. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully we'll get some more fun stuff down the line. Who knows what other stories will be coming out after their passing, especially Arleen Sorkin. Like I said, that one image of her as Calliope Jones has been everywhere online since her passing. It's funny to see how that's become a thing. And like, I don't know if Days of Our Lives suddenly has a certain resurgence because of her passing. just
Mhm.
That's one little thing. Like as they say in the business, they got the rub.
Yeah,
But if you made it this far, thank you for listening. My name is Eric Hernandez,
I'm Doug.
and we are the Rabblecast.